course, people will say, well, they can sell Declan Rice for 150 million quid, then they've got a whole raft of money to spend somewhere else. But that's not getting more, that's taking away. Welcome to this week's edition of One-2-One with Simon Jordan. Now, don't forget to keep liking and subscribing, and also, equally as importantly, to leave your questions in the comment section below. But let's get on with this week's show. If Arsenal continue to lose, then it puts pressure on Arteta and diminishes what has actually been a half-decent season. Didn't start very well, and obviously there were challenges about his role at the beginning of the season. I was one of the voices thinking that he's gone from being somebody that had the ability to someone that was all theory. He's regained the poise and put them into a really good position. In the last 3 games, specifically against Brighton and Palace, they were nowhere near it. Against Southampton, they encountered an inspired goalkeeper, so I think there's less of an issue in that game. There's an argument being made that Arsenal could literally lose all their last 6 games, I think it's left in the season. I don't think they will. I have reservations that they will finish inside the top 4, but I think with Arteta and the growth that he's going through, the leadership that he's shown, and I think it did take courage to jettison Aubameyang, because I think it was the right thing to do, rather than tolerate this kind of insubordination and disrespect in the dressing room that actually, harvests a longer-term problem. He took him out and left himself a little bit barer. So I think if Arsenal finish inside the top 6, which they will, I think Arteta's earned himself another year on the merry-go-round. So no, I don't think he gets taken out, and I don't think we lose the last 6 games. The West Ham circle to square as to whether West Ham push forward, I think will often, or more likely, shall I say, be answered by the state of the ownership. David Moyes, and I'll explain that in a minute, David Moyes has taken West Ham to a level of attainment and a level of belief inside a squad that's carried them through a season and may just get them to win a major trophy, which may just get them into the Champions League, which may just get them an extra 40, 50 million quid, which may just get them a raft of other players attracted because of the Champions League lure. Now, he may get none of that, but irrespective of whether they win this semi-final, West Ham will have had a decent season and a season to build upon. Now, here comes the part where I explain what I'm talking about, the ownership model. This year is probably the potential year when we go into 23, where David Gold and David Sullivan might factor in the thinking of selling this football club. They've already got a new investor in. It's put 150 million quid into the club to own a significant proportion, and I think he'll end up owning the club. If his ambition, with this kind of level of inputs, financial, 150 million quid for 20% for West Ham to stand still, I doubt it. So I think the ownership model is going to be a key component as to whether they kick on, supplement the squad, and perhaps meet David Moyes' expectations, because when you listen to him after the winning of the quarter-final against Lyon, he has it in his mind to win things. He has it in his mind that he hasn't actually got any silverware in his cupboard. He's managed Everton brilliantly. He got a chance at Man United, and he's managed other places. And obviously he's getting a lot of credit for the current success at West Ham, but he wants to win things. And in order to do that, they're going to need more than they've got. Now, of course, people will say, well, they can sell Declan Rice for 150 million quid, then they've got a whole raft of money to spend somewhere else. But that's not getting more, that's taking away. So I'm not sure how it will play out, but I think Moyes will have some huge leverage there. Do I think that Jadon Sancho getting £350,000 a week has caused problems in that dressing room? Well, if it's based upon his performance and people are looking at what he's getting paid for as opposed to what he's worth, then it probably will have done. But I think all of these players in the United dressing room are very well paid. All of them have their own individual contracts. I think the biggest problem is that Jadon Sancho is not developing as a player. We have a player that was arguably pulling up trees in Germany. Everyone was raving about, and he was a prospect, and United must have him, and they were going to pay 100 million the previous season. They balked at 110, so he never signed. End up signing him for 73, and he's not worth 73p right now in terms of performance terms. So I don't know. And if there is, then the other players should get on with it, because they're big and ugly enough to negotiate their own contracts, and big enough and ugly enough to be able to find out what they should and shouldn't be being paid for their performances. And quite frankly, none of them have an argument about what they're getting paid, because none of them are worth what they're being paid right now, with the possible exception only being Ronaldo. And even that is an arguable one, because in the longer game, I don't think Ronaldo is a solution for Manchester United's current ails. No, I think the bigger problem isn't about whether the other players are affected by it. It's whether Jadon Sancho is going to develop as a footballer, because he certainly isn't worth £350,000 a week. And these salaries that we're talking about, You know, I don't come at it from a bitter point of view of a former owner that spent a lot of money on players. I've made a lot of money in my life. I don't begrudge anybody making money, but I do begrudge people making money when they're not worthy of it. And it's no case at this moment in time that Jadon Sancho is worth £20 million a year of anybody's money. So I don't know if it divides a dressing room, because there's lots of personalities in there, lots of ego. But what should divide that dressing room is those that want to play for United and those that don't. And I'm not sure how many would fall on either side of that line. Look, I mean, players travel all around the world. They're not going to be travelling with their knees up underneath their nose in coach class, are they? They're going to be on Global Express private jets flying around the world in the most luxurious of circumstances. Does it look great? No. Does his manager have a very strong view on how players should perform and what he expects of them and what they can and can't do? If it were any other manager that potentially had allowed them to go, I'd question it. But it's Antonio Conte. Antonio Conte doesn't allow people to do things without demanding something in return. You know, Tottenham, if we're talking about Harry Kane's performance against Brighton, then you can look at the fact that Brighton performed very well and nullified what Tottenham do. They nullified it. They cut the out ball or the source ball so that Harry Kane didn't get any balls into him. So the real tribute should go to Brighton rather than a sort of fake headline looking at the fact he went to Augusta. Is it a great look? No. But Antonio Conte, again, is a manager that demands things from his players, and he wouldn't let him go if he felt there was any jeopardy. And the game, as I say, against Brighton was just a poor performance from Tottenham and a very good one from Brighton. Who's going to next win silverware? Depends what that silverware looks like. If you want me to make a case for who's going to win the League Cup, I can make a case for all three of them. If you want me to make a case for them winning the Premier League, I can make no case for any of them in the short term. And the FA Cup and then any of the European baubles, depends if they're in these competitions. And there's an argument that some of them are not going to be. But they'll all probably find their way into some European competition next year because of the Europa League. But the bottom line is that all of these clubs are quite some way away from winning anything of any significance. And by significance, I'm not diminishing domestic cups. I'm a great advocate for the League Cup and a great advocate for the FA Cup because I think they're fundamental to the pyramid of English football. I think they're fundamental to the traditions and values of English football. But the big boys joined up stuff now is the Premier League and the Champions League. And unless there's going to be a massive sea change at Manchester United, and I do mean massive, and of course new brooms come in and sweep cleanest, and if Ten Hag has got the chops and the balls to do it, as well as getting some more support behind the scenes, then United, after maybe 2 or 3 transfer windows, might find themselves back in competition. Arsenal may be the same. Tottenham is the curious one for me because Conte is a born winner and wins at everything, very few exceptions, and I expect him to be supported by Tottenham. So if I were going to make a case for someone to win something, then I would make a case for Tottenham to win something next season. I'd like to see him fight David Evanesian. Nobody wants the fight in his camp because Evanesian is a difficult fight. You know, he beat Josh Kelly, which would have been a good fight for Conor, and Josh Kelly was going along quite nicely. Evanesian is a former world title challenger and a absolute real challenge for him, and will come to fight properly. So I'd like to see him fight Evanesian. But I'm not sure if that's a fight they would want to make. But I want to see Conor, not about who he fights. I want to see him developed. I want to see him built. He's got brilliant trainers in his camp. You know, Tony Sims is a great trainer, and I'm sure he's going to get Conor. And I do think Conor will win a world title, and I do want him to win a world title. But I do think he's picked the most difficult division to be in. When his dad fought great fighters like Doug DeWitt and Iran Barkley and Chris Eubank and Gerald McClellan, but they were not at the level of this crop that Conor has to beat with Spence and with Crawford. So I think he's got to develop, but he's got time to do it. So now he builds his fights. Possibly, I don't think it'll ever be made because I don't think Kell will take it, but I think Kell would be a good fight, an interesting fight, but I'm not sure Kell should take that. So I would say David Evanesian is the fight I'd like to see him in, and if he wins that and wins that compellingly, then we're rocking and rolling. Okay, that's it for this week's edition of One-to-One with Simon Jordan. Don't forget to let me know your thoughts on Arteta, West Ham and Jadon Sancho. Of course, keep liking and subscribing. Equally as importantly, leave your questions in the comment section below, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week.